Can the R6 really shoot professional video? And my answer to that is yes. And ultimately, it's really not about the camera that you use, it's more about the skills that you have behind the camera that create a stunning result. However, the R6 has some pretty incredible features that has allowed me to do 2 professional video shoots this past weekend. I hope you did enjoy that little intro sequence. That was actually not the way it was intended to be shot. It was supposed to be shot much more slow-paced. My client said cinematic, and that is obviously a subjective term, but in that case, he meant a slower pace. I was just making my own edit of the footage with his permission, and just kind of showing off what the R6 can do in low light. So if those shots were, just paced a little weirdly, that's probably because it wasn't like really meant to be fast-paced like it was. However, I do feel like it turned out pretty darn well, and I was shooting Canon C-Log 4K the entire night, 60 FPS. No overheating, and I was shooting for a few hours, in fact. I'm just going to say this right now because everyone's going to come at me and saying, oh, you didn't talk about overheating. I'm going to put it first because people don't watch the whole video. It did not overheat. I saw the overheating timer show up, but it was never an issue because it would keep going back up every time I turned the camera off. If you actually turn the camera off between shots when you're not using it, it won't overheat. Leaving the camera on means it's going to overheat because it's constantly rendering the sensor in 4K. So I did not have an issue with overheating, and neither did I have an issue with any kind of the camera even being warm at all. It was actually pretty cold that night, so that also helped a lot. Another factor is, oh, it's IPB compression, Rocco. Why would you shoot with IPB? You could get all I with the R5. The R5 has pixel bin and line skipped 4K. This camera is oversampled and has 10-bit, which the R5, granted, does have, but I would rather have oversampled 10-bit IPB than pixel binned 10-bit all I. And basically the difference between IPB and all I is that IPB is a bit less data in terms of the way that the frames are handled. In all I, there is tons of data for each frame. There is still tons of data overall because this camera shoots 320 megabits per second for video, but I don't feel like I need to have all I in order to create good footage because the 10-bit on this camera destroys the EOS R 8-bit, obviously, even with all I in the EOS R. So that's why I'm still saying that you don't need all I to be professional, and you don't even need 10-bit to be professional. I could have shot the whole thing in 8-bit, but I just wanted to have 10-bit just because. The one issue I did come into with is the fact that you can only shoot 10-bit in C-Log, which granted makes sense, but when I shot in C-Log and it was dark out, you have to really turn down the shadows in order to get rid of grain, because essentially what the camera is doing in log is boosting the shadows so you have some more room to grade. That's at least what I'm seeing from this. And although it graded pretty darn well, I kind of wish that there would be an option to shoot 10-bit without having log, because I didn't really need log in that circumstance, and it was also kind of causing issues with the white balance because I was having a few problems locking that in, but ultimately I feel like it turned out pretty darn well. Next up, let's talk about battery life. That was all shot on one battery, and like I said, I was shooting for several hours. 4K 60 FPS, and occasionally switching to 23 when I didn't need 60 FPS, but that is insane. I was also taking photos here and there too. Not that it was primarily a video shoot. Shooting video for several hours, and the camera ended up, when I came back, the camera was on like its last leg of battery. However, I was very impressed, and everyone's saying, oh my gosh, mirrorless cameras have horrible battery life. This thing is amazing, and this thing is just incredible, and obviously there is a difference if you use the LPE6NH, which is the new battery, versus the LPE6N or the LPE6, which are the older batteries, which are cross-compatible with this camera, but they have lower capacities. And I have LPE6s and one LPE6NH, which came with this camera, and I didn't really have an issue with either one. I still have great battery life no matter what. So the battery life isn't a problem, but it's a good idea to go with the extra batteries. I have 5 batteries, I guess, for this camera, because I borrow batteries from my dad for his 6D, which uses the LPE6. Anyways, battery life, not a problem for me. Now let's talk about editing. Editing is a major issue. This is the biggest issue I came into I take the footage and I put it on my computer. Normally, I edit things in DaVinci Resolve. I love DaVinci Resolve. I'm editing this video in DaVinci Resolve, and the issue is when you shoot 10-bit, DaVinci Resolve doesn't support the files. Granted, I do use the free version of DaVinci Resolve. I'm going to get the full version, which is $300, but I'd say is worth the price. Hopefully soon. That way I won't have to worry about using Premiere Pro, which, if any of you know me, I hate Premiere Pro with every ounce within me. I cannot stand Premiere Pro. However, I've been forced to use Premiere Pro these past few weeks. And yes, I can edit in it, but do I like editing in it? No. It's so slow. It has these stupid bugs all the time. I can make a whole video just ranting on how much I don't like Premiere Pro and how a $500 per year subscription software should be performing better than a free software. But it doesn't. Anyways, I have to use Premiere Pro, and the 10-bit footage does play back smoothly if it's 1080p. However, I was shooting 4K 10-bit, 320 megabits per second. My computer isn't the best, it's not horrible, it's in the middle. And in DaVinci Resolve, what I would do is just generate the clip as an optimized media format, and then it would play back smoothly. But I can't do that in Premiere because Premiere has proxies, and their proxies are not as good as DaVinci Resolve's optimized media. So, you can guess what I had to do. I had to, every time it got slow, I had to go up on the top and render it through. I change one thing about the clip, and the whole thing just reverts back, and I have to render it again just to get smooth playback. It was ridiculous, and I personally don't recommend Premiere Pro to anyone. I just say go for DaVinci Resolve. I don't care how hard the learning curve of DaVinci Resolve is. It's better in the long run, especially if you have a lower end computer. DaVinci Resolve, when I took 8-bit footage from this camera, which is shooting in 8-bit right now because I just don't have the need for 10-bit. I'm tired of Premiere Pro. I need a break. So I'm shooting this in 8-bit. The 8-bit footage goes into DaVinci Resolve just fine, plays back amazing, no issues there whatsoever. However, I will say I'm gonna get the Resolve Studio, and that'll be it. So yes, these two video shoots. One of them, I didn't show the other video shoot in this video so far. However, that was an indoor shoot. I was doing it for a church, and it was pretty much fabulous the entire time. The R6 didn't overheat. It didn't do anything bad, and my client didn't ask for 4K footage, so I shot 1080p and I shot 4K a few times whenever I needed to crop in. And I brought my 7200 and my 17-35, which is being used right now. The other shoot. Now here's the issue. Shooting video and then switching to photo. So for the other shoot, not the car shoot, I was switching between photo and video because my client wanted both. Normally that's not a problem for me. My old camera, the Canon T6i, has a switch on it. There's 3 different places for the switch: off, on, and video. This camera can only go to video through the knob on the top, which granted, it's okay. But if you want to quickly switch between it, you have to remember the exact amount of times you twist it. If you twist it one way, it's 5 times, 5 different clicks until you get to video mode. If you twist it the other way, it's 6. So that's the issue. And technically, I could hit the record button on the top of the camera, but if you're in photo mode and you click that, it takes you to an auto mode, and I shoot in manual, always. I want my settings to be controlled. That's the only real issue I've had with the camera, and I'm kind of just getting used to the amount of times I have to twist the knob on the top. But other than that, I would say that yes, you can use the R6 to shoot professional video and professional photos, and we're going to get into that in a future video because I have a few more professional photo shoots to be doing with this camera. So do be sure to subscribe to see that, and while you're going down there to hit the subscribe button, you might as well just click like. Anyways, if you did enjoy this video, obviously subscribe and rocket your money. I'll see you in the next one.